Welcome back, you bunch of jackwagons, to another episode of the weekly, never weekly Jackwagon Sports podcast from the Jackwagon Sports Network. I'm back, as you can tell, and I've come back with a bang. We just spent like 40 minutes trying to get this to even work. So we're here, and I believe we're ready to talk about some sports together again.
I believe so.
Yes, sir. First on the agenda this week is big news came that Baker Mayfield has been traded to the Carolina Panthers for a 5th-round conditional pick that could end up being a 4th-round pick. I did see that it said something about the Panthers would pay $10 million of Baker's contract. How much was he supposed to be paid? And like, what's the length of his contract left? What's your guys' thoughts on that, George?
I think it was 50 million total, and so the Browns are literally paying 40. I might be completely wrong with that. It might be less than that, but it's an absurd number that the Browns are still paying. The Panthers are playing a small chunk. I mean, I'm happy for Baker. He finally got out of the situation he never deserved to be put in the first place. Gave that city, gave that franchise everything he had, and they treated him like shit because he had a bad year last year. And now my favorite part is everybody is making fun of Baker still, saying, "Oh, look at the quarterback room in Carolina. You got Baker, you got Darnold, and then you have Matt Corral." And it's like, yeah, I would rather have that QB room over a lot of these other QB rooms in the NFL.
Over the QB room of Jacoby Brissett.
Exactly. I would rather have that over the fucking Bears QB room right now. Like, no offense to Justin Fields, I think he's going to be good if we can continue to build around him. But fucking outside of that, it's a shit show. And so, but I think he is going to do really good things in a pretty open division down in Carolina. Now, granted, you still have Tom Brady and with the Buccaneers, but that is not the powerhouse team they were 2 years ago when they went to the Super Bowl. They showed a lot of issues last year. They struggled to win that division. I think the Saints are going to be back this year, and not saying number 1 seed contenders, but definitely, if not for the division, to definitely be a wild card contender. And I think the Panthers have now just slid into that conversation to be a wild card with Baker Mayfield in the backfield, because they have a great wide receiving core. If they can keep McCaffrey healthy, he is the best running back in the league when he's healthy. But outside of that, I think Carolina got a steal out of this, a conditional 4th round, 5th round pick for a 1st round QB that is a proven winner, has taken the Browns to the playoffs. Like, it's one thing when like you see a guy go to the Browns and he struggles, whatever. Yes, he had his struggles there, but he still took them to the playoffs and won them a playoff game, and now he's going to a team that's overall much better.
Nick, what's your thoughts? Yeah, I agree. So, I think that, I think that my question is, so they play week 1. Do you think that there's a chance that Baker gets the starting spot over Sam Darnold?
Absolutely. I now that this is Baker's job, yeah, he's missed OTAs and stuff. Darnold has a year in this offense already. That might be the only reservation, but I think Darnold has superstar potential in him. He just hasn't found anybody to cultivate that yet. Baker doesn't really need that cultivated. He just needs somebody to believe in him. That was his biggest thing. When he was backed in Cleveland and he was healthy, he was arguably one of the best QBs, definitely in that division, if not the entire AFC. I don't want to go as far as to say the whole NFL, but I think overall, I think he is a better solution. He gives you a better opportunity to go out there and win. They had a really good defense to start the year last year. Then they got a bunch of injuries. Same on the offensive side of the ball. But I mean, it's going to come down to summer camp. I think Baker is going out there with a chip on his shoulder. I think Baker, I don't give a shit what Matt Rule says. Baker Mayfield, it says, I'm starting week 1 against the Browns, and I'm going to show them what they miss. And that is here in Carolina. And I was looking at tickets today. I was like, I don't even care about either team. I just want to go watch this happen. I think that's going to be a game to remember.
Yeah, it's crazy that this has happened and they play week 1. It's also funny that last season or mid off season here when there was all the problems with Deshaun Watson and then he had gotten picked up by the Browns.
Yeah.
There was I forget what his name is, but he plays for the Panthers and when they had asked about
Robbie Anderson.
possible locations for him and he was like, "No." And now he's there.
Fuck
Like,
Robbie
can
Anderson.
you imagine can you just imagine like I don't know, one of the assistant coaches or the position coach walks in and is like, "Hey, you know you're going to need to apologize to him when he gets off the fucking private jet."
If I'm the Panthers, I fucking trade Robbie Anderson. He is a B tier at best wide receiver. Yeah, he's made some pretty spectacular plays, but he's literally good for one good play a game, and that's it. He's not the second coming of Jesus. He is not. DJ Moore is the wide receiver for that offense. If this offense wants to click, DJ Moore and Baker Mayfield need to be best friends, and I don't think that'll be a problem. Robbie Anderson is a fucking nobody, and his opinion being the one that's voiced as if it's the locker room opinion is a joke. Because as we said, Baker Mayfield is really, really good. And like I think that team overall just got a ton better, and it should be interesting.
Real quick, do you just want to continue doing this?
He's
Here it comes.
Yeah.
That's great.
He's back.
I was waiting for it to show.
Okay.
So Nick,
Yes.
thoughts on Baker Mayfield going to the Panthers? They're gonna pick up only $10 million, like basically 20% of his contract. He's gonna be there. We just said that Robbie Anderson, who plays for the Panthers, had strongly voiced his displeasure with the possibility of Baker coming there earlier in the offseason. What are your thoughts on this big trade?
Yeah. First of all, the bag of chips for Baker that the Browns got is just hilarious. Adding on to their already terrible offseason, just in the quarterback room alone. As far as the comments about Baker going to Carolina, I don't really understand how you can see that as a downgrade from what you already have. Um, I still have a little hope for Darnold, not a whole lot, but a little hope if he got the right coach in front of him. But nonetheless, he hasn't proven anything to anybody that should make them feel comfortable that he's their quarterback. Um, and I love Baker. Last season obviously didn't look good for him, but I think there was a whole lot going on. I think that was an example of the Browns being the Browns, because nobody on that team lived up to what they were supposed to do last season. So, all that being said, happy for Baker. Glad he gets a new chance somewhere. He's got some talent around him. I think there could be a little more, especially with McCaffrey being injured all the time. But nonetheless, a fresh start does wonders for people, whether he's got the talent around him or not. And we've seen what he was willing to do for Cleveland. I'm sure I can say 100% without a doubt that he's willing to do that for Carolina at this point.
Right. Do you guys have any more on the Baker Mayfield drama and trade before we move into golf?
I'm just really excited to see week 1. I mean, I already said it, but I am excited for week 1 now. I mean, more than I already was. Like, I'm excited for football to come back, but week 1
for
NFL
him to give
some...
the pelvic thrust to the to the Browns.
Actually, I think I'm more excited for him to do his welcome press conference or whatever, and just see. I want to see if he's classy about it or if he just throws a ton of shade at them, which I think he'll. Yeah,
to be honest, I think this is best case scenario for him because it's still not known whether Deshaun's going to be able to start the beginning of the season.
Yeah, I think it's
the NFL still
it's
investigating.
Not known,
there's still a possibility that he could be suspended for 8 games. Whatever the deal is, and so if Baker would have still been the Browns, he'd have been their backup boy basically. Like he wouldn't have had an opportunity to start.
Yeah.
Because they'd have been just waiting for Deshaun to be able to start, and then Deshaun's coming in. This past weekend, we had talked last week about how the John Deere Classic has really had some great finishes over the past couple of years. We've gotten to see a lot of great names play really great. This past weekend was pretty similar to those. The only difference was it really there was a big difference in the scores after the first and second day. Then after that, it kind of started to even out a little. But what were your guys' thoughts on the John Deere Classic this past weekend? And as I look forward to where it's going to go from here, because it seemed like this past weekend they were able to at least separate from continuing to talk about the feud with Liv Golf.
Nick, I'll let you go first before your
All right.
computer cuts out again.
Yeah, true. As far as you brought up a good point with the leaderboard. I didn't get to watch any golf this weekend. It was kind of upsetting. But I was busy having a good time, so whatever. Nonetheless, I did pay attention to the leaderboard. I had made some sort of like self picks, the people that I wanted to watch out for, especially with the upper echelon of talent not being there. The three guys that I was watching for didn't do good. Well, one of them top 20, but the other two missed the cut. But nonetheless, paying attention to that leaderboard, huge scores, Thursday and Friday, and then the weekend came and I was like, what the hell happened? But nonetheless, it looked entertaining on the leaderboard. I'm sure it was just as fun to watch. I love me a good John Deere tractor, so can't go wrong with that. But unfortunately, I don't have too much more to add.
Nick, real quick, just because we're talking about the PGA, what are your thoughts on this? The next tournament coming up, which is the Open, the Scottish Open.
Yeah. So, this is a course made for drivers. So I'm keeping an eye on, say John Rahm, especially after his, we'll call it, stronger performance than he's had a lot of times this year. Rory, two of the best drivers in the game. Obviously some people can drive decent, not quite as far, but they got good iron play. So I'm watching out for like Justin Thomas or like Will Zalatoris, somebody who's good at striking the ball. Obviously, we can't forget about Xander Schauffele. He has been pretty hot recently. Obviously, the win at the Travelers, and then I believe he did well at the Pro-Am too. And just kind of somebody that we don't necessarily talk about a whole lot, but Tommy Fleetwood, he's put some good runs together. Looking at trying to get his name back up to the top. So this could definitely be a weekend to watch out for him.
Yeah, so George, what are your thoughts on the John Deere Classic this last weekend? JT Poston getting it done. And thoughts on, like Nick had said, this upcoming weekend does have the upper echelon of players. You got Scotty Scheffler, Spaeth, Xander Schauffele, Zalatoris, Max Homa, a lot of big name guys. Tigers out there, barring any late minute
No, he's not playing
withdrawals.
this weekend.
Oh no,
No.
where is he practicing?
He's only playing the Open next weekend.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so what are your thoughts on this past weekend and this upcoming?
This past weekend, and I said it last week on the podcast, the John Deere Classic always seems to be where somebody gets a big breakthrough win. Granted, the field wasn't super stacked or anything of this. We saw a lot of great storylines. But this is Poston's second career win. He has played really well at times this year. Just has never been able to put together, whether it be because of the field ahead of him or his own miscues, whatever it may be. At the end of the day, when you win a PGA event, that is something that is nobody can take from you at that point, and it gives you an air of confidence, no matter what the field is like. So it'll be interesting to see if he can take this and continue and do like so many others that we've seen before, take this win and ride it to get his name up there higher on the leaderboard and so on, and start competing for more wins with a bigger field, majors, whatever it may be. It wasn't like a really close. He led wire to wire, and I think the last day he was up by 3 shots, on 18. So it's not like he was super pressured or anything. But it's like I said, it feels good when you win a PGA event and you win it pretty handily. Excuse me. This upcoming weekend, it's really cool that the PGA and the DP World Tour have done this, combination thing, because a lot of the guys would go play this event, but they weren't getting FedEx Cup points, anything like that. Now with the merger per se between the two tours, DP guys can go over and play the Barbasol Championship this weekend if they want to, and things like that. And so a lot of these guys are excited to go over there and be able to compete in this tournament. This is Rory did this every year. He didn't give a shit about the FedEx Cup points. So I'm really
playing
looking
the
forward.
homelands.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to him having a great weekend there, as he always seems to do. Like we said, it's basically in his home. But a lot of these guys are going to get a taste. I mean, the weather there is horrible. It's 40-mile-an-hour winds. I just watched a video of JT trying to putt, and he whacked it as hard as he could, and the wind like blew it like backwards and landed like 5 feet from him. So a lot of these guys are excited because they get to go there now and play in these conditions a week early and really get themselves ready for the Open Championship next weekend. That's going to be on a pretty similar course. They love their links golf over there in England. But I am just excited. I think it's going to be a great overall tournament, and a great preview for the next weekend.
Yeah, agreed. This past weekend, very handedly win by JT Poston. I mean, he shot a 62 on Thursday, and then he followed it up with a 65. Only one person shot better than him on Friday, and that was Grillo. And then Saturday and Sunday. I mean, Saturday he hit a 67. Sunday he closed it out with a 69 for, like you guys had said, I think he won by 3. That was an easy 1.3 million for him. George has fireworks going off in his house.
It's thunder.
The fucking dog's gonna start barking. But yeah, I was mistaken. I was thinking that the Open was this weekend, but I'm really excited for this weekend. Also, I think that I don't know if he's playing in it this weekend, but Shane Lowry is someone that I think that could do really good this weekend.
I'd be
but-
surprised if he doesn't play this weekend.
Yeah,
'Cause he's already over there because one, he's
Yeah.
getting ready for the Open, but two, he just played the Irish Open this past weekend. He did the
Right.
Pro-Am Monday and Tuesday, so
I would think he put a month in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think he's someone that could really be like kind of a dark horse in terms of he's not someone that someone would expect to win when you have someone like Roy McIlroy. Nick had said about Tommy Fleetwood. You got Jordan Spieth, Scotty Scheffler, Xander Schauffele, all these guys. So I'm excited to see that, and I'll actually get the chance to watch it this weekend, so that'll be exciting.
Yeah.
This past weekend, there was the Live Golf Tournament. We had the recap. We'll start with you, George. What were your thoughts on Live this past weekend?
Overall, they had a lot better turnout in person. I think.
Do you think
Again.
that they were paying people to be there at the course?
Not necessarily paying, but they were giving away a shit ton of free tickets. But overall, they did have a pretty decent crowd, especially on towards the end of the tournament. I want to say last couple of days. There's only 3 days, but
last couple holes.
Yeah. Well, yeah. But it's good to see the turnout improve, because if they would have had the same turnout that they had when it was in London, that would have been very, very scary. But overall,
and this was in Portland, correct?
Yeah. I mean, nothing was really surprising. Phil still sucks. But the biggest thing I took away from the weekend was Taylor Gooch's stupid fucking comment. And I don't know if you guys heard this. They were interviewing him, and he was standing there, and he's in front of the crowd or whatever, and he's like, I've never played in a Ryder Cup or President's Cup, but I gotta, this crowd feels it's got to be pretty much the same. And Dustin Johnson had to walk away because he was laughing so fucking hard.
I bet.
But and just the people shredding this dude apart online was hysterical. They're sharing videos of when they were a fucking practice round was packed, and they're doing the skull chant in the fucking stands. And somebody comes, is this really what it was like there with the fucking 50 people or whatever? And granted, there was more people there than that, but
yeah, I think in terms of fans, you would rank it like.
I'd rank it like a USFL game.
Well, I'm just saying in terms of like golf fans, you would rank like the top would be like a Sunday where Tiger's in contention to win.
Yeah.
Number 2 would be a Ryder Cup. Number 3 would be like the regular PGA tournaments, and then number 4 would be like high school golf team. Number 5 would be the Live Tour.
Yeah, but I feel like overall, both the John Deere Classic and granted, I think John Deere probably had more fans overall, but probably similar atmospheres. Like the people who went to the John Deere Classic are probably golf casuals who were just trying to get into it. They're like, hey, let's go to an event. Let's see what it's like. They're not standing there like standing up and just screaming their heads off in like every shot, like you do at a Ryder Cup, no matter who's hitting the ball, whether it's Tiger, whether it's last year when Scotty Scheffler got in, everybody's like, what the fuck is that guy doing here? Just completely dumb. Like, and I get that you're trying to build some hype behind this. Just say like, hey, the crowd this weekend was amazing. We love the energy. Let's continue to grow it. Let's get it up there, and let's compete with some of these big tournaments. And I get they can't come right out and say that because you're trying to make it, but you can't go out there and say, oh, this is just like I'm playing at the Ryder Cup, even though I've never been there. Like, just it's the dumbest thing you could possibly say because now everybody's like, oh, well, okay, well, that's just fucking stupid. So now you probably piss more people off from wanting to go see it than you would have brought in by saying something like that.
Yeah. Nick, I know you said you didn't get to watch much golf this weekend, but anything that stuck out social media wise that you or anything that George had said that you feel like you want to comment on for the Live Golf Tour?
I I actually surprisingly haven't seen a whole lot about it, um, which was definitely weird. But I've also been hella busy, so I do not have
With a
any
baby.
other comments about it. Oh yeah.
Um, I
Oh, you
think
wrap
the
it up, ladies and gentlemen.
wrap it up. Oh.
So
I thought you
we're
were
ending
saying
the
like
show.
we're
I ain't-
wrapping the show.
I ain't
I'm
talking about the
wow, that's the
show.
quickest fucking show ever.
Like God, we just fought this hard to get here.
I think the funniest thing I saw was the memes about how the Saudi people are going to start paying Phil for. They're only going to pay him $1 million for every round he can shoot under par.
Oh yeah, I did see that. That was
It's their way of
Poor Phil.
saving $190 million. They said.
Yeah. But the last thing I want to say about Live Golf is they've signed all these other people on, especially recently. You got Matthew Wolf, Kepka, and all
They're
these other
cutting
guys.
people.
Yeah, and it's not something you want to do. They're cutting people that they signed. I don't want to say massive contracts to, but the one guy they cut had like a $6 million contract, and now you cut him.
And we don't know the contracts to know if these lower paying guys, if it was guaranteed money, or if if you show up to all 8 or all 7 tournaments, you get this amount of money. Like basically like it's split up into 7 paychecks.
Yeah,
it hasn't come out like that. I'm sure people like Brooks, Phil, some of these big name people, they got their money up front.
Yeah,
but I find it very idiotic as well that they're cutting people that they're paying somewhere between $5 and $10 million just for the season to play.
Yeah.
We have the Scottish Open preview for this upcoming weekend. We talked about it a little bit already. This past week here, earlier in the week, they played the Pro-Am, and Xander Schauffele won that. The two things to take away was that Xander won and Tiger shot, I think, 2 over par.
He was 7 over par.
7.
Yeah, he shot 2 over the second day.
God.
He tied Matt Fitzpatrick. Matt Fitzpatrick just won the U.S. Open. He just tied Tiger Woods.
Yeah, but
Pro-Ams are so fucking stupid. I take them with a grain of salt. Like, granted, they're not stupid. They help charities. They help.
In terms of picking my fantasy team, it matters to me.
Yeah, I don't give a shit about your fantasy team.
You take Tiger. Take him.
He's not playing this week.
For next week.
Yeah, he gets another week of rest and he'll be good to go.
Yeah, that worked out so well for the last time.
George is about to go 0 for 3 drafting Tiger in the fantasy.
0 for 3. He made the cut both times. I got more points than the guys I drafted. They didn't make the fucking cut.
Yeah, he made the cut and then bowed out.
Yeah. Hey, that's a point.
I'll take that 1 point over fucking 0.
Yeah, it helped you. You're beating me. Yeah, that's it says more about my team than it does George's. He picked Tiger twice and it still beat me.
You know what? I'm taking him the fucking 3rd time.
Why not?
Well, don't you have to?
By the way, I'm not beating you. You're beating me.
Oh, I thought that you were winning in golf. I thought
Nick.
I thought I was in 3rd.
No, yeah, Nick's whooping our ass. He's 182. You have 148.
You were super close.
Yeah, you're up by 5.
The
last tournament that we did, that really fucked me.
So Scottish Open, Nick, who do you think is your top dog for this tournament? Got to pick one person. You got to put $50 on him. Who are you picking?
Top dog, $50. Listen. mm,
You can go the long
one
shot like
person.
the plus 2,000, plus 5,000, plus 10,000 odds, or you could go the easy Scotty Scheffler at like plus 230.
God, Tommy Fleetwood's odds got to be great right now.
I'll check it out.
Yeah, you check it out.
Other than Tommy Fleetwood do you think has a good chance at placing at least top 5 this weekend?
Oh, at least top 5. That's a little easier. I'm gonna have to go with my boy. I'm gonna have to go with Thomas. Not just because he's my boy. He has a thing for doing well the week before majors. I and due to the fact that he did struggle a little bit, I believe his last 2 tournaments that he entered. I think we'll have a nice comeback this weekend to hopefully set him up with some confidence for next weekend. And if I remember correctly, I believe he has 2 top 10 finishes in his last 2 runs here. So going Justin Thomas.
I'm taking Rory.
Rory. He's not. Like it was between him and because obviously I want to bet Thomas, especially because every time I think he's gonna do good, he usually does. But
So I don't know if Rory's playing because he's not on the odds. John Rahm is plus 1,100. Scotty Scheffler's plus 1,200. Same as Justin Thomas. Fitzpatrick is plus 1,600. Xander is plus 1,800. Cantley, Burns, and Zalatoris are plus 2,200. Morikawa, Smith, and Matsuyama are 2,900. Spieth is 3,000. Hovland, Fleetwood, and Neiman are at plus 4,000. Yeah, I don't know if Rory's playing this weekend.
I don't know. I
Fucking
see.
whatever. Then I'll take Billy Horschel. I don't give a shit.
Ricky Fowler at plus 10,000. George, are we
Oh, yeah,
going
there.
for it?
I'm not.
Spieth at plus 3,000 doesn't sound bad.
No, it doesn't. Fleetwood plus 3,700. So Nick, what did you
Yeah, I
say
guess he's
your
not
pick
playing.
is for this week?
I said Thomas.
Okay, so you're going with Justin Thomas, who is at plus 1,200. George, what are your thoughts? Scottish Open. Who's your top dog if you're driving to Virginia and putting 50 on him?
Fucking Billy Horschel. I don't know.
Nick, a $50 bet on Justin Thomas, bringing $600. You said Billy Horschel.
Got to be like plus 5.
Plus
He's scrolling a little bit.
5,000. Plus 5,000. $50 bet brings in 2,500.
There we go.
Boy.
Is what's his name not playing? So I would have liked to have
That's
picked
what does he want to lead for in case you were wondering.
so Mark Leishman's on there at plus 10,000. I think he could do good, but I don't know. I think I'm gonna go with Will Zalatoris.
I like him this weekend.
Do you guys think that this past weekend, Tiger having one rough day, do you think that shows any light as to that he isn't recovering well, or do you think that that just shows that he just had a bad day?
I mean, I don't think he's 100% yet, but I also think, it's not ideal conditions, and it's also, like I said, it's a program. He probably wasn't trying to play his absolute heart out. I don't know. Like I said, I take programs with a grain of salt. It was 50 people. Jordan Spieth got disqualified. I forget what the stupid reason behind that was, but yeah, I don't know.
DQ'd from a fucking charity event.
Yeah.
Be like that.
So moving into something a little bit more up pace for the both of you, especially talking about Nick's t-shirt right now. We're gonna move into racing. This past weekend was electrifying to say the least when it comes to racing as a whole. We had sparks fly in the F1 Thriller and Andretti fireworks in IndyCar. We'll start with those two. What were your thoughts on that, George?
The F1 race, first of all, horrifying wreck to watch. Shout out to F1 for developing the Halo. I mean, it can't be said enough. I think it's saved, guaranteed, at least 4 lives now. But it's never good to see a car go upside down, let alone an F1 car with an open cockpit, especially when it slides on its roof for damn near a football field, if not longer. But glad to see he's okay. But the rest of the race was fantastic to watch. Again, as a Ferrari fan, how they fuck up a guaranteed 1-2 finish blows my mind. How they screw over the guy who's number 2 in the championship standings, who needs desperately to try and close the gap to first place after having a rough last month racing, if not more, blows my mind. Just made absolutely no sense, and it's going to come back to bite them in the ass at the end of the season. I can already tell you now. But Hamilton's pass on Leclerc and I want to say it was Verstappen. Or was it? I can't remember anymore. That was one of the best racing moves I've seen. Watching the crowd go nuts was awesome to see. Overall, F1 race was a 10 out of 10 for me. The IndyCar race, a little bit more boring. Mid Ohio is not a boring track, but it's definitely a long, grueling day there. We have a lot of drama building with the championship now, with McLaughlin getting another win. And, you still have Newgarden, Herta, Pato, and Ericsson at the top of the leaderboards in the standings. It's going to be an exciting race to the finish in that season. And then with the Andretti drama, nobody likes Romain Grosjean. And, Andretti's trying to get everybody to play nice, especially with Rossi leaving. And he was kind of in the middle of all this shit this weekend. Rossi doesn't give a shit. And it's very evident that Herta really doesn't get along with Grosjean. They can put a smile on for the camera and say, oh, everything's great. Just things got a little heat in the cockpit and stuff. This is not the first incident. I don't think it'll be the last. I don't care what, Michael comes out and says in the media and all this other stuff. Definitely a fractured team over there.
Nick, what were your thoughts on the F1 and IndyCar race this weekend?
Yeah, so as far as Formula One goes, the only part of the race that I got to see was that wreck. I'm just glad that everyone was able to make it out alive. That was definitely scary to watch, and I've seen some scary wrecks. Like that was that was definitely I was worried as I was watching the video, but nonetheless, the IndyCar race, I did get to watch a decent amount of that. Um, there was some like it was I do agree with George. It was more on the boring side, but there was still some quality racing going on. As far as the whole Andretti thing goes, um, Herta wants to win, and I don't know if he feels like Grosjean's getting in the middle of that or getting in the way of that, I should say, or whatnot. But there's definitely some bad blood there, like George said. Rossi's leaving, so something needs to be done. I think that one, it's a good situation for Rossi to get out. Especially with the way things look right now. If they're not careful, they might lose Herta, and that's the one person remaining that they do not want to lose. It's. I think people underestimate how much of a team sport that racing can actually be, especially when you have multiple cars on the track. And we've seen it numerous times, not necessarily this year, but teammates getting a little greedy, getting a little whatever, maybe forget that that's their teammate beside them, and next thing you know, they either end up screwing themselves or screwing their teammates. So, um, I don't know what Andretti's going to do, but something definitely needs to be done before that team um, falls very far, because they're a team that's been on top of that sport, and you definitely don't want to see um, that kind of get reversed or whatever, and see them fall down.
Yeah, so I think that it was I in terms of social media following and everything like that, it seems like this has been probably the second largest weekend since behind, I should say, the Indy 500 weekend in
Mhm.
terms of racing as a whole. I think that moving into our next two parts of NASCAR, we had in the Xfinity series Noah Gragson. He got a little irritated and hooked one of the other drivers, sending him into the wall, and it basically took out 3/4 of the field in that one accident. Also, we had Tyler Reddick pass Chase Elliott, the road course king of the past couple years, to get his first win as a Cup Series driver. What were your guys' thoughts on Gregson's his move, and what he got fined $35,000 and like 30 team and owner points or driver points or something like that. What are your guys' thoughts on the wreck, the consequences, and also Reddick getting his first win, a quality win against a really good road course driver in Mr. Chase Elliott? Nick, what are your thoughts?
I was gonna go first anyway. Fuck George.
George
but
was getting ready to talk in this. So I was like, Nick, you
Yeah,
go.
he was. I mean, there's a certain point. Like, sure, it's fun as hell to play a NASCAR game and do George and turn around and wreck the whole field, but like
He's known for
he,
that. Yeah.
he is like you're on TV or whatever. You're getting paid money for this. Um, it careless, stupid. I don't really have a whole lot else to say about it, to be honest with you. Um, shouldn't have been done. As far as Reddit goes, I've kind of been on the bandwagon a little bit throughout this season, and I've been cheering him on. So it is good to finally see him, get a win. He's had a good season. He's kind of topped that off. Maybe can gain some momentum here. Are you laughing because I said top off?
No, I'm laughing because Slate just now
Oh.
responded to the text.
But yeah, hopefully he can build with that and continue as the season goes on and as his career goes on.
George, what are your thoughts?
As far as the wreck goes, it's a Bush League move. Like if you want to wreck somebody, that's one thing. Do it. Dump him going into the corner. I understand he was upset with how Sage was racing him, and that can get under your skin. I understand. You can't. First of all, if you're gonna wreck somebody, wreck them. You can't wreck yourself. Second of all, you need to be aware of your surroundings. If you want to be a Cup driver, Cup teams are going to look at this and go, "We like you. You're really good, but if you're willing to take out the whole field to get a victory, and that includes your teammates are going to be involved in that wreck and all these other parts of that, that's not somebody we want." You got to learn to keep a level head. Like I said, if you wanted to dump him going into a turn, get behind him when he hits the brakes. Don't, and just run him off the corner, and then you go about your day. Whatever. He tore up a lot of really good race cars. A lot of guys that were involved in that wreck were working their way back up through the field, had a chance to go up there and battle for a win, maybe. Just nothing you want to see. And I'm a Gregson fan. I really want to see him succeed. And there's no defending what he did. You go over to NASCAR or the Cup Series. We've said it for weeks, ever since the California race. Reddick's time was coming. He is proven that he is one of the best drivers in NASCAR. He is far out driving his equipment in RCR cars. And it was really good to see him finally break through. And I'm excited to see where it goes from there. And I think, with how close he's been and the heartbreak he's gone through, you think back to the Bristol dirt race, he got wrecked in the last corner. I think this is just going to start a landslide of victories that are on the way.
Yeah, I two things. It's great for Reddick. He really deserved this win. He really fought hard for it. Gregson's team owner Dale Earnhardt Jr. had said that basically his comments on the situation are that Gregson needs to take that out of his portfolio of moves. That should not be anything that he ever tries to do again. Second thing is that the Xfinity series, it's just shitty that something like that happens because the Xfinity series is a lot different from the Cup series. The Xfinity series, there's a lot of teams that it's like families running these teams.
Yeah,
And
a lot of teams that are struggling to make it from week to week.
They might have like 2, 3 full cars for the entire season that they're changing the entire setups for. And he might have just caused them to wreck one of their 3 fucking cars. Like,
Mhm.
there's people pulling out second mortgages on their house. They're maxing out credit cards just for their kid to get to this level to try and get to that Cup Series level. So I think that's the hardest part for when it comes to that. I mean, I think that it's been coming for a while, but it seems as if he's the Kyle Busch of the Xfinity series.
Mhm.
He just wears his heart on his sleeve, basically. Um, and so I don't think that we're going to see an end to actions like this anytime soon from him. Uh, moving into what's been basically the most important thing in the news. It has surpassed golf. It has surpassed racing. Everyone is talking about it the last couple days now. College football. We had said that we wanted to wait a couple weeks to start talking about it. I think George had a timer of, I mean, it would be 2 more podcasts until we would start talking about it.
Yep.
But it's
We
just
couldn't wait.
we're unable to wait. We would be so far behind everybody. It came out this past weekend that I think it was Friday or something like that. USC and UCLA are making their surprise move to the Big Ten. Uh, they are going to be in the Big Ten West, I believe. Well, USC is. I don't know about UCLA, but yeah, so they are the first to jump conferences. We already are sorry, they're the second. We had what Texas and Oklahoma are joining the SEC,
Mhm.
but this was the big surprise. We thought that Lincoln Riley was going to USC in hopes of kind of being able to be the powerhouse team in a weak conference, knowing that Oklahoma was going to the SEC. And in a surprise move, they moved to the Big Ten. I mean, they're going to have to deal with the likes of Ohio State. They're going to have to deal with Penn State, Michigan. What are your thoughts on that, George? And what do you think is the next team that could possibly leave the Pac-12?
Um, as far as both of them going to join the Big Ten, I think it's overall dumb. Um, and I understand why they're doing it and why the Big Ten's bringing them. Now they have just expanded not only their TV market, but the recruiting reach is now reaching California and all these other Western states. Because Penn State is going to be able to go fly out to LA and be like, hey, come play for us and all this other stuff. So it expands the recruiting reach. And I understand why the Big Ten did it. And these are high profile teams that have a lot of money behind them. And now they're in the Big Ten. One, just logistically, it's going to be a fucking nightmare for these teams to fly all over the place.
Not just
Um,
football,
yeah. You're talking about, you think about basketball,
right?
where you play 2 games a week. And so now you have to look at like Rutgers is going to end up playing USC on a Monday night, and I guarantee you they're going to have to play at home on like Thursday night, and it's just going to be absolutely horrible uh, to try and even be a part of that.
At
Um,
fucking midnight here.
yeah, um, but back to USC and UCLA, um, especially USC. You have a lot to prove, and granted, now you have 2 years to go out there and prove it because they're not leaving until 2024.
That'll
Um,
be their first season, yeah.
yeah, so I mean, you have time to right the ship, but if I'm Lincoln Riley, and we have said it that he ran from the SEC, and I don't know if in his mind he thinks the Big Ten is easier, but I can assure you it is not. USC is going to have to play Wisconsin in the middle of freaking November at Camp Randall at some point. It's going to happen. They're going to play in all these teams. You're not getting an easy schedule at all. Even if you're in the Big Ten West, which is wide open every year, and you think you can go in there and cakewalk into the Big Ten championship game every year, it. I just I don't understand, a lot of the thought behind it of thinking that this is better than playing in the SEC. Um, but I think we are on the way to, and like I said, it just doesn't make a lot of sense having these West Coast teams play an East Coast heavy conference. Um, but at the end of the, we'll see how they make it work. It'll be very interesting to see. As far as who's going to join them, um, I still think Notre Dame is on the table. Um, I mean, there's been a lot of rumors of strings attached of if they come, they need to bring somebody, or if somebody comes,
Stanford was rumored.
yeah, which I think Stanford's a fucking joke.
It was rumored that Stanford was only allowed to come if Notre Dame was a package.
Yeah, well, I don't know who would want Stanford in their conference. It's a fucking it's a waste of time. I think Oregon is still very much on the table. I mean, I know we talked about before we jumped on here about their governors trying to stop it and all this other stuff. That's
No, they're trying to. They don't want to stop it. They want to
well,
make it a
they want
package deal.
Oregon State to go with them, which is even dumber. But I mean, it'll most likely happen. At the end of the day, first of all, the government should have no say in this. This isn't a government function. I mean, I guess since it's a state school, they're supposed to get a say in it, but that shouldn't be that way. But I think those are probably the two names that the Big Ten would be looking at if they wanted to add more. I was telling Nick, I think ACC teams are off the slate just because of I was reading about how much bullshit is going on behind the scenes there of everything they would have to fight through just to get out of the conference and how much money they would lose. And that's just to get out of the conference. Then you need worry about all the other fees that you need to pay to get into a new conference. It's just more of a headache than any ACC team wants to deal with right now. But so I think Notre Dame and Oregon are the two biggest names circled if I'm the Big Ten.
Nick, what are your thoughts on USC and UCLA's big move? And did you think that something like this was going to happen, where the Pac-12 was going to turn to shambles, possibly, or did you think that this is a complete surprise altogether?
The first thing I'll say is I don't think the Pac-12 falling into shambles is necessarily a huge surprise because let's be honest, they were only 2 teams away from that anyway. As far as USC and UCLA go, I'm kind of on the same page with George as far as logistics. You know, if I'm one of the Big Ten schools, it's easier for it to make sense to me. But if I'm USC or UCLA and I'm thinking, man, I gotta go to the big house in the middle of the winter, or I gotta go to Happy Valley in a whiteout, or OSU any week of the season. There's so many, or even like George said, you think you're going into the wide open side of the conference, and now you got to go to, is it McKinnick Stadium or Kinnick Stadium or
Kinnick, yeah.
Kinnick, yeah, I'd add a little bit there. To play Iowa like that. That doesn't sound appetizing to me. And obviously, yeah, they're looking at money, and the Big Ten is a more established conference than the Pac-12. But I don't know and I get that you have the same thing backwards. Like, oh, now Penn State has to fly out to California. Especially like you said, not necessarily football, but say basketball. You'd think that somehow they'd be smart enough to work it out that, say, oh, well, we got to play at least 2 road games in California. Okay, well, say it's football. We'll just stay out there for a week in practice. We've seen other schools do it. Or, it's basketball. Stay in a hotel. There's extra 2 nights in between or whatever. So hopefully something like that comes out. But as far as the entire situation, I get it, I guess. Money talks nowadays, and this is the way we're heading.
I mean, as far as USC and UCLA, it's really good that UCLA plays their home games in the Rose Bowl, and USC will play them every other year there because it's the last time they're ever going to sip the fucking Rose Bowl. Sure. But as far as the Pac-12 falling apart, it wasn't surprising because we saw how horrible the last president ran that conference. The terrible media deals, the absolute dumbassery that was the president. It was just so surprising that they literally signed the new president signed Wednesday, and had his introductory press conference, all this other stuff, and then Thursday morning, this is the first thing that comes out. Like, what a great first day. And I don't know who he is. I don't know what his business model is going to be and all this other stuff, but I mean that's got to be a rude awakening. And it just hurts from the start. You have no chance to redeem yourself or your conference at this point for something that wasn't your fault. That was already in a fucked up situation that you literally walked into on day one. So I mean, it'll be interesting to see where they go and who they can bring in and sign and all this other stuff. But
I think that the craziest part of this is that this isn't just going to affect football. Like, my first thought is from a wrestling perspective. Jordan Burroughs, which is one of the greatest wrestlers in the United States, he tweeted out to USC and is like, "Yo, you need a wrestling coach." Like no, none of these Pac-12 schools, for the most part, aside from like Oregon State and Arizona State, they they don't have wrestling teams. They don't have a lot of these other sports because they could give a shit. Like they just don't. Their focus is all
did
on the
Stanford
big
get
sports.
their? Did
They got it
Stanford get
back.
the? They did.
They got it back. Yeah, yeah.
Because I know
So
that
they,
that kid went on to win the title, but he was
yeah,
like,
Shane Griffith. Yeah.
yeah, I couldn't remember if they decided to bring it back or not.
So I mean, there's so many sports. I mean, there's like, I mean, water polo, like just a bunch of sports that are all going to be affected by this because are these schools going like and these schools could do more cuts on sports now because they're going to be paying to travel to the East Coast 3/4 of the year, you know? Um they might cut a lot of the sports aside from the top 4 major sports, you know? It'll just be interesting to see what happens here and to see if the Pac-12 decides to pick up like I don't know, do they try and go out and poach some more or poach some of the Big 12 teams? Uh
I mean, I
yeah,
think where it's heading most likely is Utah State and Boise State are going to go join there. Utah State will have a rivalry off this jump with Utah. And Boise State and Oregon have already had rivalries. They're already slated to play each other again in a couple of years. I think it's actually next year, I want to say. But I think those are the two obvious ones that the Pac-12 wants to expand. Those are the two teams they need to bring in.
right.
But I want to give Nick a chance to defend himself. We put this in the group chat, and Said, we'll get your thoughts too, because you didn't say anything. You just sent the picture. So the 4 teams that are heavily rumored right now to join are Oregon, Notre Dame, Washington, and Stanford. Of those 4, which would you pick? And then we already know Nick's thoughts, and I want him to, if he wants to retract anything or if he wants to double down. But Slade, if you want to give us your pick as to who you want.
So
who would you
the 4
rather have?
teams again?
Oregon, Oregon, Notre Dame, Stanford, and Washington.
So I think that in terms of who they've been trying to get for years would be Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm.
But I think in terms of like who the 3 of us would like to see, I mean, I think that Oregon would be the obvious answer because it's just like how we had already talked about the Penguins and the Seattle Kraken already having a game scheduled for this upcoming year. It
Mm-hmm.
just is a great opportunity for 2 teams that we all like, you know, to be able to face off and to be able to see them both play. I mean, this is something that I don't know about you, George, but I never thought, aside from a bowl game, that we would see the possibility of Penn State and Oregon playing, or the possibility of Penn State and Notre Dame playing. You know,
God,
like
could you imagine this fucking podcast the week that those 2 teams play each other?
Oh
Right,
my
right.
god.
We were just gonna
And,
fucking
gonna be
hate each
good.
other.
and a side thought, I think it'll be years until Penn State possibly plays USC in a whiteout.
Yeah, no,
I
absolutely.
think USC still has to rebuild. I mean, they have the transfer portal and stuff, but I think that they'll still pick they'll still pick Michigan and Ohio State for those games.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, they're
Also,
either
USC is gonna have to. USC could be undefeated 5-6 games in October and have to play a fucking 5-3 Purdue,
Mhm.
who is known to upset 1-loss, 2-loss teams.
Yeah. But Nick, do you want to agree with your statement from earlier? Or do you want to change anything? But you can go ahead and just say the whole thing again.
I'm trying to remember. Okay, so I said obviously for George and I's sake, George Slade and I's
Do
sake.
you want me to quote it for you, just so you
Yes,
have a
quote it for me so I can hear it.
So of the 4 teams, who would you pick? You said Oregon by a landslide. Fuck Notre Dame. They deserve it. Still be independent and lose money. Stanford are bums, and we only said yes if they got Notre Dame to come with them. And Washington was dog shit, is dog shit, and will forever be dog shit. And I'll just say right now, I 100% agree with that last statement. Fuck Washington and everything.
Yeah, but I
about
like
that
Mike
state.
Leach.
He's not there.
Oh, where'd he go?
He's at Mississippi State. He was never at Washington. He was at Washington State.
Oh, okay. I
Yeah,
like that guy.
He's at Mississippi State. He's in the SEC now. Stanford can go fuck themselves. Like I said earlier, nobody wants Stanford in their conference. And plus, the Big Ten already has an academically limited school in Rutgers. Why they would want another one, I don't know.
I do like the tree mascots when you're playing mascot NCAA, though.
Yeah, that is very true.
They're defeated.
But that team has just been on a steady decline for years and years and years now. I don't know.
McCaffrey is the only name that I know to come out of there in the last 10.
Yeah, I mean they've had big names. And they've had
Andrew
really
Luck.
good teams.
Andrew Luck.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I mean they've had big names and really good teams go through there, but just I don't. And you can't tell me it's a recruiting restrictions because they were able to go get guys like that to come play there. Just doesn't make sense why they're not able to recruit the way they were, other than their coach just sucks. Which, but I can't say anything because they used the officials to beat us last year. So the biggest bone I had to pick with Nick on this is when he brought up Notre Dame and them fucking losing money. And it's my only problem with what he said was with Notre Dame losing money. And so I pulled up facts to back up my argument with this.
Man.
I did research.
The receipts.
I do. So Notre Dame alone makes $15 million from their TV deal. That is how much NBC pays them for the exclusive rights to air their home games on NBC. Overall, the program makes about $54 million total. Now, yeah. Now, it didn't say whether that was their 2020 number or just like their average yearly number.
That's paying Brian Kelly at the time and their players.
This is just okay. Everything they bring in. Well, I mean, Ohio State brings in $106 million a year, but that's for all their sports.
Right.
Because they, I mean, with scholarships and everything, I know they're paying their athletes. I think it said like close to $100,000 a year, or maybe it wasn't that high, but it's a ridiculous number.
Yeah, they're offering a unison price to their NIL deal. Yeah.
But again, that $106 million was every single sport. A large majority of that is basketball and football. But so $54 million for Notre Dame. Again, like I said, I don't know if that's just 2020 or if that was a couple years average. The Big Ten, last year they paid their schools because Big Ten does revenue sharing. So every football team gets paid X amount. The 12 like legacy teams is what they called them. So that's what your Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan State schools that have been in that conference since the beginning. Yeah. Made $46.1 million last year in the revenue sharing. Yeah. Outside of, now granted, they probably all made a little bit of money on their own, but for the most part, they do revenue sharing. So Notre Dame was already more valuable than those teams last year. And then the SEC is $54.6 million is how much they paid each of their teams. So Notre Dame alone made what SEC teams made. Again, that's not including what the boosters are paying you, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
They also get paid to play these other teams.
Correct. And then I brought this up in the group chat the one day. The ACC in a COVID year, where every other conference reported losses because no ticket sales, et cetera, the ACC went up $80 million in revenue because they brought Notre Dame in, and Notre Dame brought that revenue in. So that is why Notre Dame is such a. And I'm not disagreeing that I don't think Notre Dame shouldn't or should join the Big Ten. I just like pointing out when you're wrong. But at the end of the day, Notre Dame is a huge whale for any conference to bring in. Could you imagine, the Big Ten bringing in that extra $80 million a year? And Penn State will get, a bigger kickback from the Big Ten, so on and so forth. That's why they brought in like a team like USC and UCLA, because it's not an $80 million bump, but it's a heck of a lot bigger, and these schools will get paid more. But Notre Dame is such a big fish. That's why the ACC is still trying to land them. The ACC will do anything. But I think Notre Dame would be a better fit in the Big Ten. But that money is why I think the Big Ten would be dumb to walk away. That's probably why they put the price tag on Stanford. Like, hey, if you want to come, you need to bring Notre Dame with you. And Notre Dame said, fuck you, I'm not joining because of you.
All right, Nick,
I do get what you're saying there. I just want to say I wasn't saying that Notre Dame themselves were scrubs. Obviously, that's a prestigious school, but you think about, like, if you're a Notre Dame fan and you have season ticket holders, would they rather spend an extra $300 a season on tickets, but instead of getting you to, watching you play, say, 5 scrubs, we'll just say 5 scrubs, 5 good teams. Now you have the Big Ten schedule, where you might only play 2 scrubs. Like that was more along the lines of what I was getting at.
I think the best thing Notre Dame
I'm
could
glad
do,
that you brought the receipts, though. I'm real glad. That was.
But the Big Ten also has scrubs. Like if you think about looking at Penn State's
every conference
schedule,
does.
I mean, you think there's each year it's usually Iowa, Michigan State, Michigan, Ohio State. Every once in a while you get Illinois with Lovie Smith has a good season, but I mean, aside from that, the rest of the teams like Northwestern, like Penn State doesn't usually play, Wisconsin. So like, I mean, I think all of the conferences kind of have half scrubs, half can actually contend.
But the big thing, like especially being in a conference, like Notre Dame's big selling point right now as to why they're staying independent and they can go to the college football playoff is they can say, hey, we play a really strong ACC schedule. Usually, like we play Clemson like every 3 years, or we play Miami. If we're not playing Clemson, we're playing Miami. If we're not playing either of them, we're playing Florida State. We're playing these big or ACC teams, and then you stack on top of that. We play USC every year, and they play these other big teams. Yeah, they throw in a couple scrubs like a Toledo or a UMass or whatever it may be. But they can go to the college football playoff and be like, look, we played this diversified portfolio, and we beat everybody. We deserve our shot, whatever. I think the biggest selling point, especially with USC going now, is Notre Dame can go back to the Big Ten, and they have Michigan back as their rival. They have Michigan State back as their rival. They'll have USC still as their rival. They have, I don't think it's like a verified rivalry, but they always have like really good back and forth games with UCLA. And now with your independent games, if they go in the Big Ten, I think they get 3 a year. You can get Stanford and you keep them on the schedule. You can get your Boston College rivalry in, and you can either go get like a Miami or like a big name like that, or you can just say fuck it and take a week off like Penn State normally does and play like a Toledo or a UMass or something like that for your warm up.
St. Joseph Academy High School.
Yeah. Bishop Gorman.
$1.2 million paid out to them.
Yeah. But I think just the rivalry aspect of Notre Dame and bringing those big name, those trophy games back, the megaphone game with Michigan State, the just bloodbath rivalry that Notre Dame and Michigan have. Like I miss that game more than anything, and they bring it back every couple of years and play twice, and then they just let it alone. I would rather see that played every year than a lot of these ACC games. But I think that would be the biggest reason behind why Notre Dame should join. Outside of like you take money aside and everything. That's why I believe Notre Dame should go more than anything.
I don't think that Notre Dame picks a conference at all at this time. I think they wait till all this settles out.
I think
they wait till all this settles out, and then if they actually at some point do want to go into a conference after everyone settles out, the Pac-12 is nothing. The Big Ten is this massive conference. The SEC is this massive conference. The ACC is just how they are because of the fucked up contracts that they make the teams sign. I
basically
think
a basketball powerhouse.
Right, yeah, for basketball, but in terms of football, they have tough contracts, like George was saying earlier. It makes it they basically lock these people in so that this whole situation that's happening with the other schools right now cannot happen to their schools.
Yeah,
or those schools are going to go bankrupt doing it.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I think Notre Dame sits there, and because what Notre Dame is waiting to see right now is if we go join the Big Ten and we pay X amount of dollars, whatever the entry fee is to the Big Ten, however much revenue they need to give up for X amount of years, the NCAA comes out in 2 years and says, hey, in 3 years, we're going to go to this super conference format. We're going to have 4 conferences, and this is how it's going to shake down. We're going to get rid of the Big Ten, the labels. It's just going to be North, South, East, West, just to simplify it. And now Notre Dame just paid all that money. That shit's gone. You're not getting it back, no matter if the conference dissolves, whatever it may be. Once you pay that money, it's going to be gone. So Notre Dame, I feel like, is just sitting there and just waiting because they see everything that's going on. They see where everything is headed. Let's not jump into anything. Let's just sit here and play the waiting game because time is on their side. At the end of the day, like I said, their money they're bringing in isn't going to go anywhere until they decide to join a conference.
There is a way that this could backfire on them, though. this could backfire in that there are these three like mega conferences,
Mhm.
and now they don't need to pick up Notre Dame
No, yeah.
for a season game.
Yeah.
So then Notre Dame's at the point where in 3-4 years they don't have any contracts to play these teams anymore,
Mhm.
because that's about how far out they usually go,
Yeah.
anywhere from 4 to 6 years out. At that point, they could be stuck in a situation as to where Georgia, or like you said, Clemson, or whoever, Michigan doesn't need to pick them up, because
Right.
USC is this massive. USC is now rebuilt and is a massive powerhouse, or
Right.
Texas is rebuilt and is a massive powerhouse in the SEC. Like they're uh yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
the only way that.
Let's pump the brakes there. Okay.
Well, that's like 6-7 years after Sarkisian stuff, but
Okay.
but yeah. So I think that
Texas is gonna keep fucking re-signing him. I don't give a shit. They're never gonna be good.
he's gonna be there as long as Arch Manning's there. He
I
signed the
agree.
last two #1 quarterbacks.
I'm just saying he will
Yeah,
he'll be there for a while, but they'll never be
yeah.
good. So
That's something I also don't understand. Is did you guys see that it's like Drew Eller or something like that? He was the #1 quarterback last year,
mhm.
and he signed to Texas, and now Arch Manning signed to Texas this year.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, so no,
what's the
so
plan there?
he was the #1 quarterback, the Quinn guy. He was the #1 quarterback 2
Yeah,
years
Quinn.
ago. He went to Ohio State for a year, and
Right,
now
right.
he
Now
transferred to
transfer.
Texas. So technically, he redshirted last year, so he still
Yeah,
has
he's
4
still got
years.
full. Yeah, he's
Yeah,
got full.
he's not playing there for 4 years. He's going to
No,
play
no,
2
no.
years. Yeah, he's going to play 2 years and go. Archie Manning still has to go back to high school this year, so he's not going to get there for another year. And then that year, he's going to redshirt. He's going to sit behind Quinn. He's going to learn. And then
I
after
think
Quinn,
he's gonna do the. I think he's gonna do the early enrollment.
still, even then, he's going to sit for a year behind Quinn.
Right, right, right.
Quinn's going to
But
go to
it's
the
only the one
NFL, and then
year, and
yeah,
there could still be that year of overlap. That's what I'm questioning as to what the plan is there.
I guarantee. And this is what Sarkisian told Quinn, and this is what he told Archie, and this is what he's telling his staff: is our plan is Quinn will be here for 2 years. Quinn will go to the NFL, and if he's not ready for the NFL, and if he wants to stay, we're telling him then and there that Archie is taking over, and Quinn's gonna have to transfer somewhere else. But Archie will come in, he will sit for a year behind Quinn, and he will play. Now there is I can't think of his name, but there is another, like, I think he was a top 5 quarterback that they
Yeah,
signed.
yeah. They have 3 of the top 5 of the last 4 years or something like that.
And I don't know what the fuck that guy's gonna do unless he beats
Right.
out Quinn or he beats out Archie. But with college football in the shape it is in the day and age we're in right now, he's not staying. Nobody stays to fight for their job. The only person that does that is Sean Clifford, and that's because Sean Clifford's a fucking dumbass.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, he's either he'll stay and fight Quinn this year, and if Quinn beats him, he's leaving. He might stay and sit for a year behind Quinn just to be like, hey, if he gets hurt, I'm going to get some playing time. On a pretty good team, I get to go show teams what I can do, and then when the season's over, I'll transfer, and then I can go to Oklahoma, or I can go to any of these other schools and transfer in and know that I can be the starting quarterback there and not have to worry about Archie Manning coming in behind me.
Yeah, I guess that's my problem there, is that, like, say Quinn plays this season, does great, like phenomenal.
Mhm.
And in the off season he tears his ACL and has to take the next season off. That was supposed to be his last year at Texas. He rehabs, and then the next season, like, it is it at that point like set in stone, like he has to transfer, or like are they gonna fight it out? Like that's I guess my question, and especially with, like you had said,
He'll
with them having the other guy that's also top 5 recruit
Yeah.
quarterback.
he'll do the
They
tried and
could run in.
true. Who was it?
Sarkisian could really run into. He could fuck up 3 fucking top 5
Oh,
quarterbacks.
I mean, we've seen how many coaches do that. They sign all these great QBs, they bring them in, and then they lose, and they don't like. Was it? I think it was Wisconsin. It was either Wisconsin or Nebraska a couple years ago. Had this high-profile QB, and that's the exact same thing happened. He got hurt, he rehabbed, and he came back, and he was like, "All right, I want my starting job." They're like, "Well, this guy's pretty good, so you got to go fight him." And he lost, and he said, "Well, fuck this," then, and he transferred. That's what's going to happen, and I mean, it's the story of Icarus all over again. He's going to fly too close to the sun. If he hasn't already, he's going to get burned sooner or later, and he's going to fuck up that entire program. And this is what happens every goddamn year at Texas. They'll go out, they'll have a really good year this year. They might win the Big 12. They might make the college football playoff. And all hell is going to break loose over the offseason because something dumb's going to happen, an injury is going to happen. Archie comes in and says, you know what? I'm not going to redshirt. I want to take over this team now while they're good. And I want to be the one that takes us to the national championship, whatever. And it's just going to cause a bunch of shit. And their head coach can't handle it because he's a dumbass. And that entire program will get fucked up for another 7 years. And it'll take another 7 years to build them back just to get to go to this fucking Sugar Bowl to play.
Right, because that's happening a lot
team.
now with these top recruits. They're graduating in December from high school,
Yeah.
early enrolling January, and they're there for 7 months at the school before the next season, so that they can start right away and not have to sit a season to get used to the offense and everything.
Yeah.
You know,
it's I said this last week when we talked about Archie Manning signing, agreeing to go to Texas, whatever. It's one thing to be a really good recruiter, and that's something that you need to be a top tier coach. But you still need to be a coach. You still need to learn how to handle all different personalities. You're going to have those guys that want to come in and just work their ass off and just play football. And you're going to have guys that are going to come in and expect everything to be handed to them and not want to work for anything, but you can't do anything about it because they're God's gift to earth and the second coming of Jesus thrown into football. And you need to learn how to balance that. And Steve is not that guy. If you look at the way that
you're not that guy, bud.
Yeah. You look at the way that Nick Saban has run that program at Alabama, and a lot of people give him hate. And listen, I get it. You're tired of seeing the same guy win over and over. He wins over and over because of what he can do with these young men. He can bring them in. He can mold them and get them to understand, listen, you might be the best running back I've ever seen in my life. But I put X amount of faith in this guy. This guy has gotten us to this point. I am trying to get him to the next step. And when he takes over, this mantle is yours. And then you can take this program to this step. And then the next guy's going to come in and take the program to the next step. And that's what Nick Saban does so well. And that's what Kirby Smart sat there for years and learned. And now he's doing it at Georgia. And Jimbo Fisher learned for a couple years and left. And now he's over at Florida State. He went to Florida State. Now he's at Texas A&M. But you're seeing him not be able to do the same thing. He brings in all this great talent, but he can't get them to get their heads out of their asses for 5 minutes to see, hey, I understand this is what you want, and I want to get you here. But I need you to stay in line, okay? Follow the chain of command, next man up mentality, whatever you want to call it. Steve Sarkisian was there for a year, and he's fucked off to Texas, and now he's signing all these great recruits. Sooner or later, it's going to come to a head, not just the QBs. There's going to be a guy at the wide receiver position who is a prima donna. There's going to be a guy to running back. There's going to be a safety, someone, and he's not going to be able to control it all. And that's exactly why Texas will not get out of the cycle. Mac Brown was a really good coach of that. His recruiting prowess fell off because he wasn't keeping up with the times, and that was his biggest downfall, and that's why Texas fell down this pit. They had to fire him. They brought in Charlie Strong. And they just will not get out of the cycle now of needing somebody that can be a great recruiter. It's okay to be an A- recruiter, but be a really good coach who can control personalities. They don't need an A+ recruiter. Mario Cristobal, A+ recruiter, B- coach. And that was Oregon's biggest downfall the last couple of years. They brought in all this high tier talent. As soon as it got to crunch time, we fell apart because our coach wasn't an A tier coach.
And I'm anxious to see that with Lane Kiffin now, because you had said about talking about people that had studied behind Nick Saban.
Mm-hmm.
He is now getting the big recruits, like you're saying about. So now it's kind of that put up or shut up situation.
My thing with Kiffin is, yes, he learned behind Saban. I think he was there for maybe only a year. It might have been 2 tops. But
he was there a couple of years. Yeah.
He also has enough real world experience of crashing and burning in the college football system twice, and then the NFL as well, of what to do and what not to do. I think he understands the system he's playing against now, and he's working it. I don't think Ole Miss will ever get to a national title contender just because of who's ahead of them right now. I might be wrong. He might be there in a couple of years, but his program as a whole needs to take another step. But he is definitely the coach to take Ole Miss to 10-win seasons, New Year's Six playoff game or New Year's Six bowls every year, things like that. I put him at like a B tier coach, A- tier recruiter, and you see that reflected in his team. Just my problem with Texas is just the same thing they're doing over and over. A+ recruiter can't coach to save his fucking life, and that just until Texas as a booster, as a university, whatever, recognizes what's going on, they're never going to fix the true problem. And that's what you see with a lot of these schools. Dan Lanning has been an A+ recruiter. I have yet to see him as a head coach. We saw him as a DC. That's where you're only in control of 11 guys on the field and, however many guys you have as a defensive player on the roster. And we'll have to see how it shakes out this fall. But I think I wasted enough of 20 minutes rambling
So
about Texas.
I want to ask Nick a question real quick. So
Yeah.
Nick, you've been gone for a few weeks, 2 weeks now. So big question that I have is Penn State football. Okay,
Mhm.
so Sean Clifford announced he's coming back for his 6th season. Yet
I
Penn
know where this
State
is
2
going. I
years
was thinking about
ago,
this earlier.
Penn State 2 years ago had signed Drew Aller, which is one of the top ranked recruits at the quarterback position. He did the exact situation as to what I was saying is he graduated in December. He's been at Penn State now this entire time. My assumption was that he was going to be the guy to start here come this season, and I think that my opinion is that I think that Penn State is going to go with Sean Clifford. But what are your thoughts in the situation, and what do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, so the first thing that I would tell you is if there's anything that I know about James Franklin, minus the 1-0, everybody knows that. But one thing I know about James Franklin, he loves competition, especially in the off season. And while I don't think that at at least I haven't seen it this time, and I don't think that at this point that he would come out and say, "Yeah, Sean Clifford is our starting quarterback week one." Um, there's as far as Drew goes, um, you know, the general understanding is that he was going to sit this year anyway. Now, if Clifford hadn't came back, they probably would have let him at least compete. Um, but you have Christian, I believe it's Below or something like that. He had played, I want to say, against Rutgers last season, and it was against Rutgers. The Rutgers defense wasn't that bad, and he looked pretty damn good. He looked comfortable in the pocket. And then you have that came in with Drew, four-star Bo Pribolo, I think is how you pronounce his last name. Could be wrong. Um, so there's definitely talent in the quarterback room, and which is a good thing to have because if you look at like when Clifford got injured last season and our backup shit the bed against Iowa with a 21-point lead, um, you want to have talent there. But I think the general understanding is that um, Drew was going to sit this year because you don't want to send a five-star recruit in necessarily too early. And I think Franklin has an understanding of that, that like, okay, our offensive line is still kind of shaky. Outside of Parker Washington, we don't know what we have at wideout right now. We did just get, I believe it was a four-star that's coming in this year. Can't remember his name, but nonetheless. Um, so as far as Clifford goes, um, I think that there's a decent chance that he might not be the starter. Um, like I said, Below looked comfortable when he played last season. I think you at least got to give him a chance. But at the same time, like Sean Clifford looked good before the Iowa game before he got injured, and he wasn't lighting up for 500 passing yards and 5 touchdowns, but he was doing what the team needed him to do on a team that didn't really have much run offense. So I'm trying to be optimistic here, but as far as the quarterback situation goes, I think that Drew Alar sitting for one season um, isn't going to make or break him. He wanted to come to Penn State, and he understands, especially if Clifford is the one starting, for him to be able to sit there and watch a fucking eighth year senior, um, you
Throw
know,
interceptions.
throw interceptions, but play quarterback and learn from him. Hopefully, learn not to throw the interceptions. I think it's going to be beneficial for him.
I just am not a fan of him. Like I like Trace McSorley, and McSorley would
He's
just
not
throw
a
the
winner
fucking
to
ball.
me.
Trace McSorley would throw the ball into the defender 20 yards away from his receiver. Also, sometimes I just am not a fan of Sean Clifford for
It
some
was it was
reason.
the attitude, like watching Trace for was it 4 years,
Oh, he's amped up. Yeah.
and then turn around and watching Clifford. Like Clifford could have balled out. He doesn't have the same kind of energy that Trace had, and like you look at Franklin, like Franklin has that same kind of energy too. So it definitely I agree with you. I don't like the way that he fits in, but the team rallies around him, so I don't know.
For me, my biggest problem with Clifford is, like you said, the attitude. Like he, it's almost like he doesn't give a shit about winning. Like he's gonna go out there, and if he's having a bad game, he's like, fuck it, I'm having a bad game, whatever.
He does have a very profitable online fitness app with his brother that I had found out about last year. So like, I think
fit this dick in his mouth.
But I'm saying that I think that could also play a factor in football not meaning everything for him.
But
him playing at Penn State got his name out there to where it is helping off the field for his other endeavors.
He just doesn't take command of the team. Like you could put him in. Like if you think back, the Michigan State game, they got themselves somehow within 3 points, and they put him out there. And all he had to do was take command of that offense and say, we're going to go down and score. But he went out there and he's like, all right, you got this, and drop back. And you can see every single play. He's like, fuck, you can see literally in his eyes. He's like, don't fuck this up. Don't fuck this up. And what do you do when you tell yourself that? You fuck it up.
You fuck it up. Yeah.
That's just a big, there's 3.
When Trace went out there, like, especially if it was a game-winning drive, like, you could see the intensity in his eyes. Yeah. You could see we're gonna go down here and we're gonna fucking do it.
He's gonna put the team on his back. If they lose, they lose. But he's gonna go out there and give it his all. Clifford is out there he just looks scared. That's all it is. He just has zero command of that offense. And
James Franklin looked just as scared because they did not want to put in the dude that played for them at against Iowa
Well, that, and I mean he didn't want to put in the hand of his kicker, but at the end of the day, if it comes out, if they do have a competition this year, and like you said, Franklin loves competition and all this other stuff. At the end of the day, James Franklin is not the smartest football coach out there. I mean, you think back.
I don't know if we have enough time on the episode for this.
If you think back, I always think of the year after Barkley left, when McSorley was still there. The whiteout game, they played Ohio State at home, and on 4th and 1, he ran a QB draw around the outside. I think it was supposed to be an option, but McSorley's not pitching that unless somebody is like tackling him in the backfield. He's like, I'm trying to get this. Just an absolute stupid play call. And you see it time and time again with just his play call. You never think really twice about the way he's running the team per se. And if it comes down to a competition, unless Aller or whoever else gets into this competition below, or they have the guy coming in from Central York, I can't think of his name. Priblo, yeah. But unless they are far and away better, where you can't deny everything that you see and you need to start them over Clifford, I think Franklin's going to play favorites. I think he's going to make the wrong choice. Again, I mean, maybe he's coming and saying, listen, you guys are freshmen. You're going to sit, for a year behind Clifford. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Okay, got it, coach. No problem. But if they have the competition and if they blow Clifford out of the water, that's one thing. But if it's close, he's going to be like, oh, well, let's go Clifford.
Well, and I don't necessarily hate that either, but you have to be responsible about it. So if you say, you know what, no competition, Clifford, you have been our starting quarterback. You are the most experienced. You are the one that I feel like you give us the best chance to win.
Mm-hmm.
I'm cool with that. If you say no competition, I'm cool with that. But if it comes week 3, week 4, and instead of seeing the pre-Iowa, pre-injury Clifford we see the same old Sean Clifford that we seen at the end of last season,
on the ground
before, on the ground, throwing all kinds of dumb interceptions, making dumb plays, then you have to know that your second quarterback is there, and you have to be confident in him. Because
week 3, if that's like you said, if that's how he decides to go, either no competition or if there's a competition and he says Clifford is our guy, whatever. Week 3, I think week 2 or week 3, you're walking into Auburn. I mean, granted, he played at Ohio State last year, but I know you guys are going to make excuses. He wasn't 100% right then. Whatever it may be. If he's not healthy week 2, walking into Auburn, and he walks in there, that is his moment to put up or shut up. Either this is going to be my team this year, and I'm taking us to wherever this team goes, whether it be the Big Ten East title, a Big Ten title, or a New Year's Six, whatever it may be. If he walks in there and completely shits the bed, there is no ifs, ands, or buts that he should be taken out because you're healthy, you had your shot, and you can't do it against a subpar SEC team. Now, Auburn is somehow really good at home, no matter who they play. But that is your opportunity. You're 100% healthy. You can't use that excuse unless you got hurt week 1. Which, if you're getting hurt week 1, unless it's like a dirty hit or just a freak accident, you shouldn't be playing quarterback because you need to be healthy all 12.
Well, Penn State's week 1. He'll only play 3 quarters.
Well, I mean,
but
maybe.
but I mean, the problem is that I have is that okay, so COVID threw a big problem into the fact of the recruiting that they had already made promises to some of these guys. Let's say they told Drew Aller, like, look, you're going to start year 2023 or 2022, whatever the deal is that they say. Like, Clifford wouldn't at the time that at the time that they signed him, Clifford didn't have the opportunity for a 6th year or what is now his actual 8th year.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that the hard part is that, let's say injury prone Clifford gets hurt mid-October. Now you're going to throw one of these guys in that hasn't seen the fucking field. It's 30 degrees outside. Like November probably. It's like 30 some degrees outside, and it's like the third quarter. Like now if this guy starts throwing doinks, it just validates their reason for keeping Clifford in the rest of the season once he's healthy.
I'm agreeing. I'm just saying, if it's 50, if I'm the head coach of Penn State right now and it's 50-50 between Clifford and Aller, we'll just use the big number 1 recruit they got, whatever. I personally would probably, just knowing what Clifford brings to the table, and I hate coaches that do, okay, we're just gonna split quarterback reps first couple games. Clifford gets to drive out. Yeah. That is the dumbest shit to ever exist. No. And it gives you nothing because your quarterback goes out there and gets 0 rhythm. And the second they do, you're taking them back out. But for me, if it's 50-50, I would probably take Aller just because like I said, I know what Clifford brings to the table. I don't know what Aller's going to go out there and do. And 30 seconds left, we're down by 4 to Ohio State, and we just got the ball on the 6 or our own 40-yard line. I know what Clifford's most likely going to do. He's going to go out there, make a play or 2, and then throw a pick. Yeah. Whereas I don't know what Aller is going to do. That's probably why I would, like I said, unless but at the end of the day, Franklin's going to do what he's going to do. Real quick,
my biggest fear is that with Clifford saying that he's coming back for this year, that it almost creates a sense of like that we owe him. Like, we have to let him start. That's my biggest fear.
Yeah. And then just real quick, back to their schedule. Week 1, they play at Purdue. So wait until week 3 or they play Auburn week 3. Week 1,
it could be over week 1.
Week 1, it is time for you to put up or shut up because West Lafayette is not an easy. Ask Ohio State, who was undefeated 2 years ago, or 3 years ago. They walked into West Lafayette thinking they had the game won, and Moore, I can't think of his first name, but Moore fucking torched them all over the field, and blew them out. So that is, I mean, if you pick Clifford now, week 1, you get to make your bed, you have to sleep in it. Yeah. Now, if it's going horribly, you can go pull him at halftime and throw Aller in there, or any of the other QBs in there. But you're going to learn very quickly whether Clifford is 100% healthy, if he's ready to put up or shut up this year, or I mean, again, he needs to be named the starting QB for this year. I mean, that'll change the whole conversation if we're talking week 1 and it's any other QB they got named. It's like, okay, are they ready? Because that's as much hate as we're giving Clifford. At the same time, if you put a freshman in there, is he ready for this moment? Is he ready to take this team who doesn't? I mean, we don't know about the running attack this year. How I mean, we hoped it's improved. That was their biggest drawback last year. That team probably could have won 2 more games if they could run the goddamn football. But if you, I mean, we're going to be sitting here week 1. If they name anybody else, going, are they ready to do this? So I mean, I don't envy the situation Franklin's in. It's just like I said, just and if it's like they had anybody else, like a more established backup or something, you could be like, okay, hey, let's give this guy a shot. Whatever, you can make a bigger argument. But at that point, it just becomes, is a freshman ready to go do this?
Yeah. I mean, if we want, just real quick, I know we're spending forever on this. If like we're talking my personal opinion, I want to see Christian Velo play. I want to see him start because he came in, like I said, I'm 99% sure it was Rutgers. I know it was a decent defense, not necessarily top tier or anything, but and he balled out and looked great. And I'm sitting there thinking, this dude is in his first college game ever and looked like 3 times the quarterback Sean Clifford did, who's played for how many
I mean,
years
it
now?
took him a while, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, it took him a little bit to get warmed up, but
And I mean, I think overall as a team, they expected Illinois to be more of a cakewalk. I mean, I think up to that point, Illinois had 2 wins, and they're like, oh, this is easy. It's
yeah,
we Below gets to go in there and get his feet wet and get mentally ready. And like I said, they had 0 running game. It didn't help their defensive coordinator was a complete dipshit. That's really the reason they lost that game is Illinois did one thing for 4 quarters and 9 overtimes, and you
yeah,
couldn't stop it.
yeah.
And that's why you were in the situation that you were in. If you could have got a couple more, now granted, yeah, they were making stops, but after Illinois took 10 minutes off the clock every possession they had, you get a couple more stops earlier in those drives. Guess what? Your offense can go out there. They can get a more established rhythm. They can get their feet under them, and that game isn't close. That's the biggest thing.
All right, boys.
From now on, we should just do college football episodes.
We're gonna have to do 3-hour podcasts for the college football season, but
we're just doing golf and college football from now on.
There we go.
Yeah. We'll get into our top 5 of the week here quick, and then we'll wrap things up. This week Nick's back. It was his turn. He picked Gatorade flavors. Really good topic. Nick, you want to start it out? What are your top 5?
Yeah, I'm busting them off straight. Pause. Straight off the top of my head. All right, so number 5, I got
Bust
orange.
him off his balls.
Yeah, busting them off. Number 5, I got orange. It's a good flavor. It's nice and refreshing. 4, lemon lime. I think it's more the nostalgia. Brings me back to like Saturday morning soccer games. Number 3, I want to the Glacier Freeze. I think the light blue one. Number 2. Hold on, I just lost my train of thought. What my number 2 was. Oh, the Glacier Cherry, the white one. And number 1 is the strawberry watermelon. I fucks with strawberry watermelon everything. So
George, what's your top 5?
First of all, you're a fucking narc for listing the actual flavors.
Oh, sorry.
Everybody knows you call them by the colors.
Okay, but there's like 2 white flavors, so I just want to I wanted to make sure.
There's only one good one. You just say the white one, and everybody knows you're talking Glacier Cherry.
That's fair. That's fair.
My top 5, I have red. It was between red and orange for my 5th spot. Normally, I just go for red more often than the orange. Especially if they get warm, I can still tolerate the red, but the orange just tastes weird when it gets warm. Number 4, I have the dark blue one. I believe it's called Cool Blue is like the actual name for it. I just grabbed the dark blue one. Blue something cherry. I think it is actually.
Blue cherry is the other dark blue one.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's blue cherry. Sorry. Number 3, light blue, the Glacier Freeze, like you said. Just real quick, a quick tangent. All of these are the frost flavors, or the not the ice that's like cut with water and all this others. That shit tastes disgusting.
Yeah.
Moving on, number 2, the lime green, lemon lime. Like you said, nostalgia. If I go into any gas station, I know that flavor will be there. I will just grab that. You go into a vending machine, that flavor will be there. I will grab that. Number 1 is the white, or the white cherry. I think that's the god tier flavor. That is by far my favorite to get. I used to do it all the time as a kid. You stick it in the freezer for just long enough that it doesn't get 100% frozen. It just slushies. And then I cut the top off of it and I eat that. That is the best way to do Gatorade. I love the shit out of that.
See, I would have put that one as my number 1. I think I had it 3, right? But the only reason I had it lower was because I like that one so much that especially obviously when I was in high school and actually did play sports. Like I would do summer league for football or for basketball, and I'd be sweating my ass off in a gym, and I'd come out and be like just fucking chugging because I'm thirsty, and then I'm like, man, this tastes good, so I chug more, and next thing you know, I'm back out there, and I'm like struggling to run around.
Yeah.
So
Fair enough. I mean,
yeah.
You're. I mean, at least it was on your top 5. If you didn't have it in your top 5, I think it would have been a little.
Oh
more,
no,
so.
it had to be on the
Yeah,
top 5.
yeah.
Easily my favorite flavor, but we list the top 5. Like we
Now,
try to keep it.
If Slade says that lime cucumber shit, I will kick him off this goddamn podcast.
I was gonna put it on the list just to fuck with you guys.
I wrote mine on the list to piss you off because
Oh, I didn't even see it.
So I put the actual like flavor names because
Of course
I knew
you
that it was
did.
gonna piss George off.
Yeah.
So I put lemon lime, which is the yellow. I put fruit punch, which is red.
Okay.
Orange for number 3 because orange is the color and the flavor.
Very basic flavor so far, but that's okay.
2, I have Glacier Freeze, which is the light blue.
Okay.
And then number 1, best of all time, Glacier Cherry, white.
Look, the 3 of us fucking agreeing on something for once.
Oh
fucking,
my god.
That's all 3 of us just had solid top 5s with Gatorade flavors.
I was thinking about it too, and
We
I'm
go
like,
with the
I don't know,
carnival
a lot of
food too.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, that is very true. No, it wasn't. Was it carnival or was it like tailgate food?
No, it was the ballpark food.
That's what it was. Yeah. Next week we're doing carnival food.
All right.
Now Slade's got me hyped for funnel cakes.
Yeah.
But that'll do our very long episode. I think we're gonna break this up into 2 parts.
Just cut out the
anything
NASCAR
long
part.
about us. Yeah, true.
No, we're just gonna make 2 parts. I mean, more videos, more views, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's how it works.
2 episodes this week.
But we will be back
1 week.
next week. I mean, we might as well just talk golf and college football next week. But other than that, thank you guys for checking us out. Happy to have Nick back, the 2-time back-to-back baby daddy champion. I was going to say something about pulling out, but I'm too stupid to think of something on the fly. Anyway, go follow our social medias, subscribe to our YouTube, and we will see you guys next week right back here for another episode of the Jack Wagon Sports Podcast on the Jack Wagon Network. Bye, everybody.
See ya.